Open up the depths of your heart to find eternity and live for more than your eyes can see. Give God the glory for all eternity. This video is picking up in the middle of two parts on the use of parables in Scripture. If you've popped into the middle right here, you might want to back up a little bit, just by one video, to catch the beginning. I've placed a handy link right up here if you'd like to catch it. Besides a sower sowing seed, Jesus used other common things like sheep, coins, wedding feasts, fig trees, vineyards, laborers, all of these to teach the greatest of truth. These always rehearsed the everyday common features of life that the people could observe, but their applications were aspects of the kingdom not yet known. In Luke 20, verses 9 through 18, God is represented as a man who planted a vineyard. That the man in the parable went on a journey does not present God as taking journeys. The lesson is found in the way people become selfish and irresponsible with what God entrusts to them, and how that would end with the Jews rejecting God's own Son. When we study the parable of the prodigal son, what later became of the prodigal after his return is beside the point. Luke 15:11 through 32. And we will arrive at a very unhappy conclusion if we press this detail too far. The father told the elder brother, "And all that is mine is yours." Luke 15:31. The natural conclusion would be that the father has no further blessing to give any returned son, because the inheritance had already been divided. But that was not the point, so we're not supposed to go there. The point was the attitude of the older brother, a lesson needed by the Jews to whom Jesus presented this parable. I know that because Luke has already told me that back in verse 1. Their attitude did not reflect the love of the Father. It's important to know that Jesus was not the first to use parables. The Lord extends a simile into a parable in Jeremiah 17:8. Read it and try to get the point being made. Doesn't the preceding verse, verse 7, give us the meaning? It is a contrast to a parable just before that in verse 6. The point being pressed is the foolishness of trusting human wisdom and the wisdom of trusting in the Lord. Before we leave this point, let me say a few words about whether the account of the rich man and Lazarus in Luke 16 is a parable. Remember that the parables of Jesus begin with the known to reveal the unknown. This forces us to conclude that the rich man and Lazarus doesn't fit the pattern of a parable. We do have a rich man and a poor man with their circumstances described, but the story quickly reaches into the unfamiliar recesses of the grave where the original listeners have no knowledge. That's far different from a story where a king goes off to receive a kingdom and then returns to reward his faithful servants and destroy his enemies, like Luke 19:12 through 27. Note that the king, representing Jesus, goes into a far country, but we never follow him into ethereal realms that we do not understand. Even if we were to assume that the information taught by Jesus in the rich man and Lazarus was a parable, we would have to remember this. The parable uses words in their literal sense, and its narrative never transgresses the limits of what might have been actual fact. In other words, there really were literal places to which the conscious souls of people went and conversed in protracted existence of bliss or torment. It's usually the Jehovah's Witness or Seventh-day Adventists making this claim of it being a parable in an attempt to deny its clear description of conscious existence after death, which of course they deny. If you keep in mind that a parable never embellishes reality with an untruth, then you have your answer. Even if this were a parable, it would still teach a conscious existence after death. An appropriate observation here is the additional fact that the poor man is named. Parables never name characters, avoiding the unintended application that would be too specific. Well, I want to thank you again for studying with me. And in our next video, we're going to move on to two more figures of speech and how they're used in the Bible.